My daughter-in-law stepped out to take a call during our afternoon tea. Suddenly, a woman at the table next to me pressed money into my hand and whispered almost without moving her lips, "Call a taxi and leave through the bathroom window. Barely managed to get out alive." I know it sounds like something straight out of a movie, but I swear on the memory of my late husband, Stephen, that every word I am about to tell you is the truth. And if you are watching this, if you ended up here looking for a story that makes you feel something real, I ask you to stay until the end, because I do not wish what I lived through on anyone, but I need you to know that it can happen to anyone, even to you. And if this story grabs you, subscribe to the channel to keep hearing real testimonies like this one. That day was Tuesday, March 14th, to be exact. Valerie, my daughter-in-law, had invited me to lunch at the Pergola, an extremely expensive restaurant in the city center that I never would have chosen. Too elegant for my taste, too pretentious. But she insisted. She told me we needed to talk, that she wanted to fix things between us. I did not trust her anymore, not after everything that had happened in the last few months. But a part of me, that foolish part that still hoped to get my son David back, agreed to go. I was wearing my burgundy coat, the one Stephen gave me for our last anniversary. I fixed my hair, I put on the pearl earrings that belonged to my mother. I wanted to look dignified. I wanted her to know that I had not broken. I arrived first. I sat at a table by the window from where I could see the fountain in the garden. The waiter offered me water, and I ordered a chamomile tea. It has always calmed my nerves. Valerie arrived 15 minutes late, as always. She was wearing a fitted black dress, very high heels, her hair pulled back in a perfect bun. She looked like a magazine model. She smiled when she saw me, but that smile did not reach her eyes. "Helen, it is so good to see you," she said, giving me a kiss on the cheek that felt cold as ice. We ordered our food. She ordered a salad. I ordered the Eggs Benedict because if I was going to be uncomfortable, at least I would eat something I liked. We talked about trivialities, the weather, the construction on Main Street. Nothing real. Then her phone rang. "Excuse me, Helen, this is important. I will be back in a moment," she said, and walked out toward the parking lot. I stayed there, staring at my plate, feeling that weight in my chest that had not left me for months. I took a sip of my water with lemon. It tasted strange, slightly bitter. I thought maybe it was just the lemon. That was when I heard the whisper, "Ma'am." I turned my head. At the next table was a woman of about 65 with short silver hair and thick glasses. She was looking at me with an intensity that frightened me. She slid her hand under the table, and suddenly I felt something in my palm. Bills. $100. "Call a taxi right now," she whispered without moving her lips like a ventriloquist. "Go to the bathroom. There is a window that opens to the side alley. Get out through there. Do not come back to this table." My heart started beating so fast I thought everyone in the restaurant could hear it. Why?" I stammered. "Your drink. I saw when she put something in it while you were looking at the menu. Please believe me. I am a nurse. I recognize these things. Get out. Now." The world stopped. I looked at my glass of water. That bitter taste. I looked toward the parking lot. Valerie was still turned away, talking on the phone. I looked at the unknown woman. Her eyes told me, "We do not have time." I stood up. My legs were trembling. I walked toward the bathroom, trying to look normal, even though I felt like I was going to faint. I went in. I locked the door. And there it was, a small window with decorative bars that, thank God, were not bolted down. I climbed. At my 68 years of age, I climbed like I had not done since I was a little girl on my grandmother's farm in Ohio. I scraped my arm. My stocking tore. I fell on the other side into an alley that smelled of garbage and dampness. I hailed the first taxi I saw. I gave him the address of my friend, Eleanor, and while that taxi pulled away from the pergola, while I watched in the rearview mirror as Valerie came running out of the restaurant looking for me, I knew with absolute clarity a truth that froze me to the bone. My own daughter-in-law had tried to kill me. And the worst part is that I knew exactly why. But to understand why we reached that point, I need to take you back 6 months. To the day I made the biggest mistake of my life, opening the doors of my house, believing I was gaining a family, when in reality I was inviting the wolf in. It all started in September of last year. I had just marked 2 years as a widow. 2 years since Stephen left, leaving me alone in that colonial house in the historic district that we bought together when we were 30. 3 bedrooms, a central patio, with rose bushes, original hardwood floors. Our entire life was between those walls. Stephen also left me 2 commercial units on University Avenue. One was rented by a pharmacy, the other by a clothing store. Between the rents and my pension, I lived comfortably. Not rich, but without struggles. I had enough for my expenses for my medicines to treat myself every now and then. My son David came to visit me every 2 weeks, always alone. Valerie almost never accompanied him. She said she had work, that she had migraines, that she had anything. And that seemed perfect to me, because from the day I met her 3 years ago, something about her made me uncomfortable. It was not her way of dressing always impeccable, nor her way of speaking polite, but cold. It was something in her eyes, as if she were measuring, calculating, evaluating all the time, as if behind that perfect smile there was a cash register counting numbers. But David loved her, or so I believed. So I swallowed my doubts and tried to be kind. Everything changed when I turned 68. Valerie organized a dinner at my house. She arrived early with David and 2 friends of hers that I did not know. She brought very expensive food from a Japanese restaurant, scented candles, even ambient music on a portable speaker. "Because you deserve something special, Helen," she told me, arranging the dining table as if it were for a decor magazine. During dinner, she started asking questions. Questions that sounded innocent, but now looking back, I see they were pure strategy. And how do you manage with this house being so big, mother-in-law? Does it not feel heavy to clean it all? Do you still drive to do the groceries? Oh, it is just that at this age, city traffic is dangerous, right? Do you remember to take your medicines because I can set alarms on your phone so you do not forget? I answered her with patience. Yes, I cleaned. Yes, I drove. Yes, I took my pills for my blood pressure without a problem. But she insisted. It is just that I see you alone, Helen, and I worry. David worries too. Right, honey? David nodded, chewing his sushi without looking me in the eyes. That night, when everyone left, I stayed up clearing the plates. I found a paper napkin where Valerie had scribbled something. Numbers, amounts, 800K house, 1.2 stores, pension 3K. I felt a chill. I kept that napkin in the drawer of my nightstand. I did not say anything to David. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, that maybe it was just harmless curiosity. How foolish I was. 2 weeks later, Valerie started visiting me more often. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, always with some excuse. Bringing me pastries, accompanying me to the supermarket, helping me with paperwork. She checked my pantry as if I were incapable of buying food. She moved my things around so they would be more at hand. She asked me about my documents, my deeds, my bank accounts. It is to have everything in order. Helen, just in case something happens one day. One day, she arrived with David and some suitcases. "Mom," my son said to me with that voice of a ashamed child he used when he was little and broke something. "Valerie and I thought it would be good to stay with you for a season to take care of you so you are not alone." I did not want to. But how do you say no to your only son when he looks at you like that? When he makes you feel that rejecting him would be cruel? "Of course, son," I said. "This will always be your house." They settled in the front room, the one that had been David's when he was a teenager, and that was where my nightmare began, because Valerie did not come to take care of me. She came to study me, to control me, to prepare me for what she had planned. Only I did not know it yet. The first days were tolerable. Valerie cooked, cleaned, smiled. David left early for his job at the accounting firm and returned late. I tried to maintain my routine, my soap operas, my plants in the patio, my calls with my friend Ruth. but little by little, so slowly that I almost did not notice things started to change. First, it was the television remote control. I always left it on the coffee table. One day, it was not there anymore. Valerie had kept it in a drawer, so it does not get lost. Every time I wanted to watch something, I had to ask her for it. Soap operas again. "Helen, would you not prefer to watch documentaries? They are better for keeping the mind active." Then it was my car keys. I had hung them on the hook in the entryway for 30 years. One morning, they were not there anymore. "Oh, mother-in-law, it is just that David needed them because his car is in the shop. He will return them tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into a week, then into a month. When I asked for them, Valerie looked at me with that expression of fake concern that I was already starting to recognize. "Do you not remember that we agreed you should not drive anymore? The other day you almost crashed in the supermarket parking lot." That was a lie. I had never crashed, but David was there nodding as if it were true. "Mom, it is for your safety." I swallowed hard. I said nothing, but I felt something break inside me. After that came the phones in my bedroom and the living room. "They were not working well," said Valerie, and she replaced them with a new cordless one that she kept. If I wanted to make a call, I had to ask her for the device, and always she stayed close while I spoke. My friend Ruth stopped visiting me. When I asked Valerie if she had come, she told me, "Yes, she came, but you were asleep." I told her to call her instead. Ruth never called me. I could not call her either. I did not have the phone at hand. One afternoon, I looked for the photo album I kept on the bookshelf. The photos of my wedding with Steve and David's birthdays, our trips to Florida. It was not there. "Where is my album?" I asked at dinner. Valerie looked up from her plate, surprised. "Which album?" "The one with the photographs, the green one with embroidered flowers." "Oh, Helen, that album has been in the same place for months in your closet upstairs. Do you not remember?" I went up to look for it. It was not there. I went down. I insisted. She sighed as if I were a stubborn child. She went up with me, opened the closet, and there was the album in a place where I never kept it. "See? Here it is. Maybe you moved it and forgot." David looked at me from the door with something that looked like pity. That night, alone in my bed, I hugged Stephen's pillow and cried, because I was starting to doubt myself. I was starting to wonder if I really was losing my mind. Valerie started calling me Granny, even though they did not have children. She did it with a sweet, condescending little voice as if I were 5 years old. "Granny, take your pills now. Granny, better stay sitting down. Do not go falling. Granny, let me do it. You rest." I stopped being Helen. I stopped being the owner of my own house. I became a nuisance with a diminutive name. My routines disappeared. My space shrank. My decisions did not matter anymore. And the worst of all is that David saw all of this and said nothing. My son, the boy I raised, the man I taught to respect his elders, looked at me as if I were a problem that needed to be solved. One night I heard him talking with Valerie in the kitchen. I was in my room, but the walls of these old houses are thin. "How much longer are we going to go on like this?" David asked. "As long as necessary," she replied. "She is not ready yet." Ready for what? There was a long silence. Afterward, Valerie's voice low but firm. "So that no one doubts when we say she can no longer live alone." I covered my mouth so I would not scream. Now I understood everything. They had not come to take care of me. They had come to erase me. The next morning, Valerie entered my room without knocking. I was barely waking up. She brought a cup of coffee with milk and a white pill that I did not recognize. "Good morning, Helen. I brought you your medication." "I do not take that pill," I told her still, with a voice raspy from sleep. "Of course you do. It is the new one Dr. Fisher prescribed. For memory. What Dr. Fisher? I have gone to Dr. Morris for 15 years. Valerie sighed as if explaining things to a stubborn old woman was her daily penance. Helen, Dr. Fisher came 2 weeks ago. Do you not remember he is a neurologist? David brought him because you were forgetting things. I felt a pit in my stomach. No doctor had come. Or if he came, no one told me. They were medicating me without my consent. I am not going to take it. Valerie's eyes hardened for just a second. Then the sweet mask returned. As you say, but when David finds out you are not cooperating with your treatment, he is going to worry a lot. She left the cup and the pill on my nightstand. She left, closing the door softly. I threw the pill in the toilet and watched it disappear with the water. That same week, Valerie organized what she called a family meeting to catch up. She invited my niece Martha, my cousin Justin and his wife Amber, and Stephen's sister Eleanor, with whom I had not spoken for years due to a misunderstanding about some furniture from the inheritance. They all arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Valerie had prepared roast beef apple pie coffee. My house smelled like a party, but I felt that something terrible was about to happen. We sat in the living room. Valerie served the coffee with the smile of a perfect hostess. I gathered you all because I am worried about Helen. She began with a voice that was soft but firm. David and I have been living with her for 3 months, and well, we have noticed things. My heart started beating faster. What things? Martha asked. Valerie took out a folder, as if this were a business presentation. Look here, I have the electric bill from 2 months ago. Helen paid the same bill twice. I did not remember having paid it the first time. Lie. I never paid double. Here is a note that the neighbor Mrs. Higgins left her, complaining that Helen knocked on her door at 3 in the morning, saying there were strangers in the patio. There was no one. Lie. I never did that. And 2 weeks ago, she accused the girl who comes to clean of having stolen a silver brooch. The brooch was in her jewelry box where it always was. That did happen. But why did someone move it from its place and then return it? Now I know who. My family looked at me with eyes full of worry. Eleanor especially observed me with something that looked like pity. Aunt, Martha said, taking my hand, is that true? I opened my mouth to defend myself, but how do you contradict evidence that you did not know existed? No, things did not happen like that. My voice came out weak, insecure, and that was worse than any silence. David spoke for the first time. Mom, no one is accusing you of anything, but Dr. Fisher says these are normal symptoms of cognitive decline. We just want to help you. Cognitive decline. The words burned my throat. I am perfectly fine. Valerie put her hand over mine, squeezing it tight, feigning tenderness. Of course you are Helen. That is why we are here, to take care of you, so you do not have to worry about anything. Justin cleared his throat uncomfortably. And what do you propose? That Helen gives us power of attorney, said Valerie, taking another paper out of her damn folder. Temporary, just so David can help her with the payments, the paperwork, the complicated things. That way she can rest easy. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to say yes. Eleanor was the only one who frowned. Power of attorney, that is very serious. It is for her own good, insisted Valerie. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kick them all out. But a part of me, that part that they were already managing to break, wondered, what if they are right? What if I really am losing my mind? I need to think about it, I whispered. Valerie smiled, but that smile did not reach her eyes. Of course, Granny, take your time. When everyone left, I locked myself in my room, and for the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own family. 2 weeks passed, 2 weeks in which Valerie tightened the siege. I no longer left the house without her permission. I no longer answered the phone without her being present. She even checked my email to help me with the important responses. David worked more hours than ever, or so he said. The truth is, I think he could not stand to look me in the eyes. Then came October 18th, my 68th birthday. Valerie woke me up early with a radiant smile. Happy birthday, Helen. Today is your special day. We are going to celebrate with the whole family. I did not want to celebrate anything, but she gave me no choice. At 6 in the afternoon, they started to arrive. Martha with her husband Justin and Amber Eleanor. Even 2 distant cousins came who I had not seen since Stephen's funeral. Valerie had invited everyone without asking me. The table was set with my good plates, the china I inherited from my mother. There was roast beef, rice, fresh bread, cheesecake. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. "Cheers to the birthday girl," said Justin, raising his glass of wine. Everyone toasted. I forced a smile. We ate, we talked. Everything seemed normal until they brought the cake. A vanilla cake with candles that said 68. I blew out the candles. Everyone applauded. And then Valerie stood up. "Family, I took advantage of us all being gathered because I need to talk about something important." The air changed. I felt that weight in my chest again. Valerie walked toward the living room and returned with a cardboard box. She put it on the table next to my cake. "These days I have been organizing Helen's things, and I found something concerning." She opened the box. She started taking out papers, invoices, receipts, documents. "Look, here are 3 water bills, all unpaid with shut-off warnings." I had never seen those bills. "Here is a bank statement where 2 withdrawals of $1,000 each appear from ATMs. Helen does not remember making them because I did not make them. And here is the most serious thing." She took out a crumpled envelope. Inside, there were bills, thousands of dollars in cash. "I found this hidden inside Helen's mattress. It is $4,000. When I asked her where it came from, she could not explain it to me." All eyes fixed on me. That money," my voice trembled. "That is my money from my savings." "But why do you hide it under the mattress?" "Aunt," asked Martha, genuinely worried, "that is not safe. Anyone could steal it." "Oh, it is just that she does not trust banks anymore," said Valerie with a compassionate tone. "She says they steal her money. That is why she takes it out and hides it." "That is not true," I whispered, but my voice came out so weak that almost no one heard it. Valerie continued relentless. 3 days ago, Helen accused our neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, of breaking into the house to steal her pearl earrings. The earrings were in her jewelry box. "Why did someone move them?" I said, my voice rising. "I did not put them there." "Who was going to move them, Mom?" said David with that tired voice that broke my soul. "Only the 3 of us live here." Eleanor looked at me with a furrowed brow. Justin avoided my gaze. Amber shook her head. "And yesterday," continued Valerie now with a breaking voice as if she were the victim, "yesterday she accused me of stealing a ring from her. A ring that she sold 6 months ago to pay I do not know what bill. But she insists that I stole it. That was a lie. I never sold that ring. It was the engagement ring Stephen gave me. I would never part with it." "Liar," I shouted, standing up. "Everything you are saying is a lie." The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Everyone looked at me with eyes full of pity, as if I were a delusional old woman, as if I were a burden, as if I were a problem. Valerie walked up to me. She took my hands. Her eyes shone with fake tears. "Helen, no one is attacking you. We love you. That is why we are worried." She let go of me and addressed the family. "Dr. Fisher recommends that we consider options. Maybe an assisted living facility where she can have professional care 24 hours a day." "A nursing home," I said, feeling something break inside. "You want to put me in a nursing home." "It is not a nursing home, Mom," said David without looking at me. "It is a residence, with nurses, with activities. You would be better off there." I looked at my son. At the man I carried in my womb, who I raised alone when Stephen worked 12 hours a day, who I made lunch for during 20 years, who I helped pay for college, and he could not hold my gaze. "Better?" I repeated. "Better than in my own house." No one answered. Eleanor was the only one who spoke. "This seems very rushed to me. Helen has always been a strong, lucid woman." "With all due respect, Eleanor—" Valerie interrupted her. "You have gone years without living with her. We live with her. We see what happens every day." I collapsed into the chair. The tears came out without permission. That was the moment I felt everything was lost. My own family had declared me incompetent. On my birthday, in my own house, with my own cake still uncut on the table. Everyone left early. No one wanted to stay to eat cake. That night, alone in my room, I hugged Stephen's photograph and whispered to him, "Forgive me for not knowing how to protect what we built together." But something changed in me that night. Something hardened. Because if they were going to treat me like an enemy, I would learn to fight like one. 3 nights after that humiliation, Valerie brought me my nighttime medication, as always. A pink pill that was supposedly to sleep better. I did not trust anymore, so I did something I had learned watching movies with Stephen. I put it under my tongue, took the glass of water, pretended to swallow, and when she left the room, I spit it into a tissue. My heart was beating like a drum. I turned off the light. I lay down. I closed my eyes. And I waited. At 11 at night, I heard her steps in the hallway. The door to my room opened slowly. I felt her get close. I held my breath, pretending to be deeply asleep. "Helen," she whispered. I did not answer. I did not move. She left. She closed the door. 20 minutes passed. Then I heard voices in the living room. Valerie and David were talking. Quietly, but in that old house, everything is heard if you pay attention. I got up without making noise. Barefoot, I walked to my bedroom door. I opened it just a crack, and what I heard froze my blood. "Is she asleep already?" It was David's voice. "Yes," I gave her a double dose. "She won't wake up until noon tomorrow." I felt a chill. Double dose of what? How much longer are we going to continue with this Valerie? I can't stand seeing her like this anymore. "Now you are going to get sentimental." Her voice sounded cutting. "We are already too deep in David. There is no turning back. She is my mother. She is an obstacle, and obstacles are removed." There was a heavy silence. "Tomorrow Mr. Towers is coming," continued Valerie. "We will show him the whole file, the duplicate bills, the accusations against the neighbors, the hidden money. With that and Dr. Fisher's report, it will be enough to have her declared incompetent." "Incompetent." David's voice sounded unsure. "Legally incapacitated. That means that you, as her only son, get guardianship over her. Absolute power. You can sell the properties, move the money, decide where she lives. Everything." My stomach twisted. "The commercial units already have a buyer," continued Valerie. "Mr. Garrett offered $150,000 for both, cash and the house. This big house in the center is worth at least $800,000. Maybe more if we sell it well. Almost $1 million. That was the price of my life to them. And her—" David asked, "Where is she going to live?" "In St. Lucy's residence. I already spoke to the director. It is $4,000 a month, all inclusive. With her pension, it covers it perfectly, and we keep the rest. It sounds, I don't know, it sounds cruel." "Cruel?" Valerie let out a dry laugh. "Cruel is remaining buried in debt because you do not know how to control your addiction to poker. You have gone 6 months without paying Rocky. Do you know what people like him do to you when you do not pay? Do you want your mom to find out you lost $50,000 at the betting tables?" My breath cut short. David, my son, gambling, losing fortunes. "I already paid $20,000, he said with a defeated voice. "Yes, with my money, money that you are going to pay me back. Plus interest." Valerie's voice was pure ice. "So stop playing the saint. You need this just as much as I do." Another long silence. "And what if she refuses to sign?" "She is not going to refuse." Because tomorrow, after the visit from the lawyer, when we show her the whole medical file and explain to her that she can lose everything in a long and painful trial, or she can cooperate and live peacefully at St. Lucy's, she is going to sign. And if she doesn't do it— The pause that followed gave me goosebumps. Then we will have to accelerate Plan B. What Plan B? Dr. Fisher has a friend, a geriatrician who certifies cases of advanced dementia. With the history we already built plus a strong episode, let's say Helen tries to leave the house in her pajamas in the middle of the night, or that she gets violent, or that she has a crisis. That is enough for an involuntary commitment. My God, Valerie, don't come at me with morals now. You knew what we were coming here for. You agreed to move in. You signed the first report from Dr. Fisher without reading it. You are in up to your neck, David, just like me. The footsteps approached toward the hallway. I ran into my room. I closed the door without making noise. I threw myself on the bed. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst. Valerie entered again. I felt her next to my bed. She held her breath. She stayed there a full minute. Then she left. I stayed motionless until I heard them close their bedroom door. Then I sat on the bed trembling from head to toe. I had heard everything, every word, every detail of the plan to steal my life. My son was not a victim. He was an accomplice. The woman sleeping across the hall was not my daughter-in-law. She was a predator who had studied every move as if it were a chess match, and I was the piece they were about to eliminate from the board. But now I knew, and for the first time in months I felt something stronger than fear. I felt rage, pure ancient rage, the kind that makes you get up when you thought you couldn't take any more. If they wanted to play dirty, I could too. But I needed help, and I knew exactly who I had to turn to, even if it meant swallowing my pride. The next day, Valerie and David went out mid-morning. They said they were going to the bank, that they would be back in 2 hours. It was my chance. As soon as I heard the car engine pull away, I ran to the kitchen pantry. Behind the jars of coffee and sugar, I kept an old cell phone that Stephen used for emergencies. A basic device, one of those that only work for calls. I had hidden it there months ago when Valerie started controlling my communications. I turned it on. It still had battery. Thank God. I dialed Ruth's number, my lifelong friend. It rang, rang, rang. She did not answer. I tried again. Nothing. Maybe Valerie had already told her something. Maybe Ruth also believed I was losing my mind. My hands were trembling. Who else could I call? Then I remembered a name I had gone years without pronouncing. Eleanor Stephen's sister. We drifted apart after his death over a foolish thing. She wanted to keep the porcelain tea set that had belonged to Stephen's mom. I wanted it too. We argued. We stopped talking. What stupidity. What an absurd waste of time. I looked for her number in the old address book I kept in my underwear drawer. There it was, written with Stephen's shaky handwriting. I dialed before fear stopped me. Hello? Her voice sounded the same, raspy, firm. Eleanor, it is Helen. There was a silence. Then, Helen, are you okay? Your voice sounds— I am not okay. I need help. I need you to come. Please. What is wrong? Is it David? It is complicated. I cannot explain it over the phone. Can you come today? Now. Another pause. I am on my way. I hung up. I hid the phone again. I sat in the living room to wait with my heart racing. Eleanor arrived 40 minutes later. She rang the doorbell. I opened it myself, something I had not done in weeks. She stood on the threshold observing me. Eleanor was always tall, big-boned, with the face of a woman who does not let herself be intimidated. She had short gray hair, small silver earrings, a brown sweater, and jeans. Nothing elegant but dignified. Come in, please. We went into the living room. We sat down. We looked at each other like two strangers who were once family. I do not have much time, I said. They will return soon. David and Valerie. Eleanor, they are robbing me. They are making me out to be crazy to take everything from me. I told her everything. Every detail, the control, the lies, the medicines, the family meeting, the conversation I heard last night. Everything. Eleanor did not interrupt me once. She just listened with her eyes narrowed, processing every word. When I finished, she stayed quiet for a long moment. "Do you believe me?" I asked, feeling a lump in my throat. "I believe you," she said without hesitating. "At your birthday gathering, something did not sit right with me. The way Valerie presented everything was too perfect, too prepared." I felt a weight being lifted off my chest. "There is something else," continued Eleanor. "Something you need to know." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "After that meeting, something bothered me so much that I investigated. I hired a guy who works on the internet, one of those who knows how to find information. I gave him Valerie's full name. Valerie Scott. And your daughter-in-law has a record not criminal, but a dark history." My breath stopped. 7 years ago in Ohio, she lived with a widowed aunt, a 72-year-old lady named Eloise Scott, wealthy with properties. The aunt started showing signs of deterioration. Valerie convinced her to give her power of attorney. She sold everything. She put her in a cheap nursing home. The lady died 6 months later. I felt the floor move under my feet. Valerie inherited everything as the sole caregiver. More than $200,000. The family tried to sue, but they could not prove anything. Valerie had built a perfect medical file. Good Lord, this is not improvisation, Helen. It is her method. She already did it before, and now she is doing the same to you. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were not tears of sadness. They were of rage. What can I do if I go to the police? They are going to think I am crazy. Valerie built the whole fake file. She even has a complicit doctor. Eleanor took my hands. Her hands were rough, strong, real. "We need evidence, real proof, and we need to move you fast before they commit you or make you sign something." "How?" "I know someone. A young lawyer, aggressive. His name is Sebastian Orton. He specializes in the protection of the elderly. He has won cases against children, nephews, grandchildren who abuse seniors. He is good and he is honest. Do you think he will help me?" "I am sure, but we need to move today, now." I looked at the clock. An hour and a half had already passed. "I cannot leave. If they see me leaving, they are going to suspect. Then he will come here tonight. I will bring him. You let me in through the back door, the patio, 1 at 10 when they are asleep. And if they discover me..." Eleanor squeezed my hands. "Helen, if we do not do something now, in a week, you are going to be signing papers you do not understand. And in 2 weeks, you are going to be in a nursing home room watching them take your life. Is that what you want? No." So, I took a deep breath. I felt something I had not felt in months. Determination. "Tonight at 10. Eleanor smiled. It was a small smile, but ferocious. "Stephen would be proud of you." She got up to leave. Before opening the door, she turned around. "Helen, one more thing. Do not take any pill they give you. None. Spit it out, throw it away, whatever, but do not swallow it. I already learned that lesson." When Eleanor left, I stayed sitting in the living room feeling how something inside me was waking up. They had made a mistake. They thought I was alone, but I was not anymore. That night passed with a torturous slowness. I had dinner with Valerie and David, feigning normality. Chicken salad that I could not taste. Every bite got stuck in my throat. "Is the food okay, Helen?" asked Valerie with that false sweetness. "It is delicious." I lied. David did not even look at me. He ate in silence with his eyes glued to his plate. At 9, Valerie brought me my nighttime medication, the pink pill as always. "Open your mouth real wide so I can see you take it," she said, smiling. My heart skipped a beat. She had never said that before. Did she suspect something? I opened my mouth. I put the pill on my tongue. I took the water. I swallowed, making the exaggerated movement of my throat. "Good girl," she said, as if I were an obedient pet. As soon as she left, I spit the pill into my hand. I wrapped it in a tissue and kept it in the drawer of my nightstand. Evidence. I went to bed dressed with my clothes under my pajamas. I turned off the light. I set the alarm on my old alarm clock for 9:45 p.m. Time crawled like a snail. When the alarm finally rang, I got up without making noise. I walked barefoot to the back door of the patio. I opened it slowly. The hinges creaked barely. The patio was dark, barely illuminated by the moon. The rose bushes moved with the October wind. I waited, hidden behind the planters. At 10:03, I heard the soft tapping on the metal door. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. The signal Eleanor had indicated to me. I opened. Eleanor entered first, followed by a young man no more than 35 years old. Tall, thin, with thick-rimmed glasses, a short beard, a backpack on his shoulder. He was wearing jeans and a denim shirt. No suit. Nothing intimidating. "Helen, this is Sebastian Orton," whispered Eleanor. The young man extended his hand to me. His grip was firm but warm. "Mrs. Helen, it is an honor." Helen told me her situation. I came to help her. We went into the kitchen. I closed the patio door. I put water on to boil for coffee. "Tell me everything," Steve said, pulling a small recorder out of his backpack. "With details, dates, names, events, everything you remember." I told him the complete story again, this time without crying, coldly, with precision. Steve took notes in a notebook while he recorded. "Do you have any physical evidence?" he asked when I finished. I took out the handkerchief with the pills. 4 of them now, the ones I had saved over the last few days. I need to know what they are giving me. Steve put them in a small plastic bag with a zipper seal. "I will send these to be analyzed. If they contain unauthorized sedatives or dangerous doses, that is evidence of abuse." "And Dr. Foster?" I asked. "The one who supposedly diagnosed me." "I am investigating his license. If he is issuing false diagnoses, we will report him to the medical board. He could lose his license." I felt a spark of hope. "What do we need to do?" Helen asked. Steve leaned back against the table. "First, we need to protect your properties. Tomorrow we go to a different notary one I know, and we make a formal declaration that you are in full command of your faculties. That blocks any attempt to declare you incompetent." "Can I do that?" "Of course. You are the owner. No one can take that right away from you without a court order. And for that, they need real proof, not a fabricated file." "Second," he continued, "we need evidence of what they are doing. Recordings, documents, messages. How they control my phone, my email, everything." Steve smiled and pulled a new cell phone out of his backpack. "This is for you. It already has my number saved. Hide it well. Use it only for emergencies or to record important conversations. Keep it on silent mode always." I took the phone as if it were a sacred relic. "Third," he said, "we need to track the money. If Valerie has already moved funds, sold something, or forged documents, that is fraud, a criminal offense, jail time. How do we find that out? Give me access to your bank statements, deeds, important documents. Where do you keep them?" "In my closet. Up top in a red velvet box. I need to photograph them. Can we go up?" I looked at the clock. 10:47. Valerie and Damien would be asleep, or so I hoped. "Follow me." We went up the stairs slowly, avoiding the steps that creaked. We entered my room. I locked the door. I opened the closet. I stepped up on a stool. I took down the box. Steve began to photograph every document with his cell phone. House deeds, property titles for the commercial units, bank statements, rental contracts, everything. "Mrs. Margaret," he said, suddenly looking at a bank statement, "here is a withdrawal of $2,000 from 2 weeks ago. Did you authorize this?" "No, I did not take out that money." "And this one?" $1,500 10 days ago. "Neither did I." Steve looked up with hardness in his eyes. "That is bank fraud. They are using your account without authorization." "What can I do?" Tomorrow we go to the bank, change all your passwords, block any access that Damien or Valerie have. Put a security alert on it. Helen put her hand on my shoulder. You are not alone anymore, Margaret. Now you have an army. Steve finished photographing everything. We put the documents back away. One last thing, he said. I need you to act normal. Keep pretending. Do not raise suspicions. The more time we have to build the case, the stronger it will be. How much time? 1 week, maximum 2. And if they try to commit me before then, call me at any hour. I have contacts in the district attorney's office. We can block any attempt at involuntary commitment if there is no real cause. We said goodbye on the patio. Helen hugged me tight. We are going to win this, she whispered in my ear. When they left, I went back to my room. I hid the cell phone inside a tea bag inside the coffee canister. No one would look for it there. I lay down in bed, but I could not sleep. For the first time in months, I did not feel fear. I felt something much more dangerous. I felt power. And Valerie had no idea what was coming for her. The following 5 days were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend, to act like the confused old woman they thought I was, taking my medicines and spitting them out, nodding when Valerie spoke about assisted living options, smiling when Damien avoided my gaze. Steve worked in silence. The analysis of the pills arrived. Controlled prescription sedatives mixed with anti-anxiety medication, doses that when combined could cause severe confusion, short-term memory loss, even psychotic episodes in older people. All calculated, all planned. Dr. Foster turned out to be a doctor with a history of complaints for irregular diagnoses. Steve had already initiated a formal complaint with the Medical Arbitration Commission. At the bank with Steve accompanying me, we changed all the passwords. We blocked any secondary access. The manager, a woman of about 40 named Patricia, reviewed the recent movements and turned pale. Ma'am, there are withdrawals here that do not match your usage pattern. Did you authorize these transfers? No. Then someone has access to your account. We are going to launch a fraud investigation. Valerie and Damien had no idea that the walls were closing in on them until Tuesday, March 14th arrived. That day, Valerie came into my room with a smile that was too wide. Margaret, I have a surprise. Today, we are going to have lunch together, just you and me, at a nice place to celebrate that we are going to fix everything. My stomach tightened. Something was not right. Where? To the pergola downtown. I already made a reservation. I remembered Steve's words. Act normal, do not raise suspicions. That sounds good, I said. I got ready, the burgundy jacket, the pearl earrings. I wanted to look strong. Before leaving, I took the hidden cell phone and put it in the inside pocket of my jacket. I put it on continuous recording mode. We arrived at the restaurant. Everything happened exactly as I told you at the beginning, but now I can tell you what I did not know then. When Valerie went out to answer the call, it was not a coincidence. She called herself from another phone to have an excuse to step away, because she needed time for me to drink enough poisoned water. The woman at the next table, Gwen, had been watching since we arrived. She worked at General Hospital. For 30 years, she had seen cases of elder abuse. She knew the signs. She saw how Valerie constantly checked my glass. She saw how I drank without suspecting. She saw how my movements began to get slower, my gaze glassier. And she saw when Valerie, standing up to answer the call, brushed against my glass with her sleeve and poured something else from a small vial she carried in her closed fist. Gwen acted. She saved my life. Because what Steve discovered later investigating Valerie's records was chilling. 2 days prior, Valerie had bought a bottle of high-strength sleeping pills on the black market. High concentration. The dose she had put in the water, added to the sedatives that I had supposedly taken in the morning, was enough to cause respiratory arrest in a woman of my age, with my history of high blood pressure. It would have looked like natural causes. A heart attack during lunch. What a tragedy. What a shame. And Damien would have inherited everything. But I escaped. When I arrived at Helen's house that day, trembling with my dress torn and my arms scraped, the first thing I did was call Steve. "It is time," I told him. "We have everything we need." "Are you sure they just tried to kill me?" "Yes, I am sure." That night, Steve activated everything. He filed criminal complaints with the special prosecutor for crimes against the elderly, fraud, forgery of documents, illegal supply of controlled substances, attempted homicide. He also alerted the authorities about Dr. Foster and organized the meeting that would change everything. I asked Steve for something specific. "I want to see their faces when they find out they lost." He smiled. "That can be arranged." 2 days later, Valerie received a call from Mr. Torres, supposedly the notary, who would help her with my incompetency papers. "I need to see you, Damien, and Mrs. Margaret tomorrow at 11 in my office to sign the final documents." Valerie almost screamed with happiness when she hung up. "Damien, it is done tomorrow. We sign everything." That night, I heard how they celebrated in their room. Cheap champagne laughter plans about what they would do with the money. Damien, my son, the boy I carried in my arms, laughed while planning to get rid of me. That was the last straw. I stood in front of the mirror in my room. I saw myself. The wrinkles, the gray hair, the tired eyes. But I also saw something else. I saw the woman Stephen loved, the woman who built a business, the woman who raised a son alone when her husband worked double shifts, the woman who survived the death of her parents, the loss of her husband, the betrayal of her family. "Tomorrow this ends," I told my reflection, and I went to sleep peacefully for the first time in months because I knew that the next day Valerie and Damien would walk into that office expecting to sign my death warrant, but they would find something very different. They would find justice. The morning of March 16th dawned cold. I got up early, showered, put on my olive green dress, the one Stephen used to say made me look elegant and serious. I barely put on makeup. I combed my hair back tied up. I wanted to look lucid, strong, imposing. Valerie knocked on my door at 9. "Margaret, it is almost time." "Ready to go with the lawyer?" "Ready," I replied with a firm voice. She looked at me strangely. She'd gone days without hearing me speak like that. "Do you feel okay?" "Perfectly fine." In the car, Damien drove in silence. Valerie was reviewing papers in the passenger seat. I was in the back watching the city pass by the window. "Margaret," Valerie said, turning around, "today you only have to sign where the lawyer tells you. They are papers to protect your assets. Do you understand?" "I understand perfectly," I said. We arrived at a corporate building in the financial district. We went up to the 11th floor office, 1106. Steve had given me the exact address, but Valerie thought it was the office of the corrupt Mr. Torres she had contacted. It was not. We entered. The receptionist, a young girl with glasses, did not smile. "Mrs. Margaret Campbell." "That is me." "Come in, please. They are waiting for you." She opened the door to a conference room. Valerie entered first, smiling confident. Damien followed her, adjusting his shirt collar. I entered last, and I saw their faces change. Sitting at the table were Steve with a briefcase full of documents, Helen with her arms crossed and an expression of stone, 2 officers from the district attorney's office, a man and a woman both in uniform, and a public notary, Mr. Medina, whom I had known for 20 years. Valerie stopped dead in her tracks. The smile froze on her face. What is this?" she stammered. Damien turned pale. "Mom, what is going on?" I sat at the head of the table. I folded my hands. I looked at both of them with a calm that surprised even me. "This, son, is what happens when you underestimate your mother." Steve stood up. "Mrs. Valerie Scott, Mr. Damien Campbell, you are here because you have been summoned regarding multiple complaints filed by Mrs. Margaret Campbell. You have the right to remain silent or to leave. But if you do, the arrest warrants will be issued immediately." Valerie tried to laugh. Arrest warrants? This is ridiculous. Margaret, what did these people tell you? Are they manipulating you? Helen spoke with a cutting voice. The only one who manipulated anyone here was you. Steve opened his briefcase. He began to take out documents and put them on the table, one by one. Evidence number 1. Toxicological analysis of medications administered to Mrs. Margaret without her consent. High-potency sedatives, dangerous doses, signed by the certified laboratory of the ABC Hospital. Valerie swallowed hard. Evidence number 2. Bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals totaling $15,000 in the last 4 months, traced to accounts in the name of Valerie Scott and Damian Campbell. Damian closed his eyes. Evidence number 3. Falsified medical file signed by Dr. Foster, who is currently facing investigation for malpractice and document forgery before the National Medical Arbitration Commission. Valerie's mask began to crack. Evidence number 4. Testimonies from 5 neighbors and local merchants declaring that Mrs. Margaret always showed lucidity and coherence, contradicting the alleged cognitive deterioration. Steve paused. Then he took out a red folder. And evidence number 5. Background of Valerie Scott in the state of Ohio. Case of Mrs. Eloise Scott, her aunt who died in suspicious circumstances 6 months after giving her power of attorney. Identical modus operandi. The silence in the room was deafening. Valerie was breathing fast, her nostrils flared. Then Steve took out his phone. He connected it to a small speaker. And finally this. He pressed play. Valerie's voice filled the room. She is an obstacle, and obstacles get removed. Damian's voice. She is my mother. Valerie's voice again. The two of them. Mr. Garrido offered $100,000 for both of them, and the house. This big house downtown is worth at least $800,000. Every word was a blow, every sentence a stab. The recording continued, the complete plan, Damian's debts, the blackmail, the St. Lucie residence, Plan B. When it finished, Damian had his head in his hands. Valerie looked at me with pure hatred. She hissed, you recorded us. Of course I did, I replied calmly. I learned from the best, from you. You taught me that people show their true face when they think no one is looking. I stood up. I walked around the table. I stopped in front of Damian. Look at me, I told him. He lifted his face. His eyes were red. Mom, do you know what hurts me the most? I interrupted him. It is not the money. It is not the properties. It is that you looked at me every day knowing what you were planning. You watched me take those pills. You watched me doubt myself. And you did nothing. A tear rolled down his cheek. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of her, of your debts. I am your mother, Damian. I would have sold everything to help you if you had asked me. But you preferred to rob me. You preferred to destroy me. I turned toward Valerie. And you entered my house. You slept under my roof. You ate at my table. And all the time you were calculating how much my death was worth. Valerie crossed her arms. Are you done with your little speech? The district attorney stood up. Valerie Scott, you are under arrest for the crimes of fraud, illegal supply of controlled substances, elder abuse, and attempted homicide. You have the right to remain silent. This is a farce, Valerie screamed. You have no proof of anything. We have everything, said Steve coldly, including the bottle of sleeping pills you bought at the pharmacy on Main Street. The owner identified you by photograph. Valerie tried to run toward the door. The officers stopped her. They put the handcuffs on her. She looked at me with a poison that froze the blood. You are going to die alone, you stupid old woman, without family, without anyone. I smiled, a sad but firm smile. I prefer to die alone than to live surrounded by vipers. They took her away. Damian remained seated, destroyed. Mom, he whispered. I looked at him. My only son. And for the first time in my life, I did not know if I still recognized him. After they took Valerie away, the room was left in a heavy silence. Damien remained seated, staring blankly at the table. The agents took his statement. He confessed everything. The gambling debts. The $30,000 he owed to a dangerous loan shark named Rocky. Valerie's blackmail, how she convinced him it was the only way out. And the restaurant? Steve asked. Did you know what she planned to do that day? Damien looked up, his eyes full of panic. No, I swear to God, no. When she told me she had invited my mom to lunch, I thought it was to convince her to sign the papers. Nothing more. When I found out what she had attempted, I could not believe it. And even so, you said nothing. Helen's voice was pure ice. You didn't call the police. You didn't protect your mother. Damien covered his face with his hands. I was afraid Rocky would kill me. I was afraid of going to jail. I was afraid of everything. I approached him. I knelt down to be at his eye level, although my knees protested the effort. Damien, look at me. He lowered his hands slowly. You were my pride, I told him with a voice broken but firm. The boy who woke me up on Sundays to have breakfast together. The young man who cried watching movies about dogs. The man who brought flowers to his father at the cemetery every anniversary. Where is that Damien? I don't know, Mom. I lost him. Then find him, because the one sitting here is not my son. The agents explained his legal situation. He could face charges as an accomplice, but given that he cooperated and did not participate directly in the poisoning, the prosecutor could consider a deal. You are going to pay your debts, I said, standing up, but with your own work, not with my stolen money. You are going to go to therapy. You are going to face your gambling addiction. And you are going to earn step by step the right to call yourself my son again. Are you giving me another chance? His voice was barely a whisper. I am giving you the chance to save yourself. What you do with it depends only on you. We signed documents. Mr. Medina certified my full mental capacity. Steve legally blocked any future attempt at a declaration of incompetency without my explicit consent. All my properties were placed in a trust managed by Helen and Steve. No one could touch them without my direct authorization. The $15,000 stolen were tracked and frozen. The bank initiated its refund process, and I, for the first time in months, signed documents knowing exactly what they said. 3 days later, I visited Damien at his new apartment, a modest place, 1 bedroom on the edge of town. He had to move. He could no longer live in my house. I knocked on the door. He opened it. He looked haggard with deep, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven. Mom, I came to bring you something. I extended an envelope. Inside was $3,000 in cash. What is this? It is a loan, so you can start paying Rocky and they don't kill you. But it is a loan, Damien, with a contract, signed before a notary. You're going to pay me back with monthly payments of $150 for 20 months. He took the envelope with trembling hands. I don't know what to say. Say you are going to comply. Say you are going to seek help. Say you are going to fight to be better. I will, I promise you. I hugged him. He smelled of sadness and regret. I still love you, son, but love does not mean allowing you to destroy me. It means giving you the tools so you can rebuild yourself. The rest is your job. When I left that apartment, I cried in the car. I cried for the son he was, for the man who got lost, and for the fragile hope that he could still find himself. The trial against Valerie took 4 months. Steve built a flawless case. The charges accumulated. Aggravated fraud, elder abuse, forgery of documents, illegal supply of controlled substances, attempted homicide. Dr. Foster lost his professional license and faced his own criminal charges. The case in Ohio was reopened. Aunt Eloise's family presented new evidence. Valerie would have to answer for that, too. At the last hearing, they asked me to give a victim impact statement. I stood in front of the judge with Helen by my side. Your Honor, I said with a clear voice, this woman not only tried to steal my money, she tried to steal my dignity, my identity, my sanity. She tried to convince the world that I was no longer a complete person, that I was a disposable object. I looked at Valerie. She returned the gaze with pure contempt. But she failed, because I learned something in these months. It is never too late to defend yourself. You are never too old to fight, and dignity is not lost with age. It is lost when you let others decide who you are. The judge handed down the sentence. 12 years in prison. Valerie screamed, cursed, swore revenge. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. I also did something else, something neither Helen nor Steve expected. I took $20,000 from my savings and created the Stephen Campbell Foundation for the Protection of the Elderly, intended to offer free legal advice, psychological support, and temporary shelter for seniors who are victims of family abuse. Because if this happened to me with education, with resources, with a home of my own, I told Steve, imagine what happens to those who have nothing. The foundation opened its doors 6 months later. At the inauguration, Gwen, the nurse who saved me at the restaurant, was our guest of honor. You saved my life, I told her, hugging her, and you are saving many more. She replied with tears in her eyes. Damien did not go to the inauguration, but he sent me a letter. Mom, I have been sober from gambling for 4 months. I go to therapy twice a week. I paid my first monthly installment of the loan. I still have a long way to go, but I want you to know that every day I try to be the son you deserved to have. I love you, and someday I hope you can forgive me. I kept that letter in the box where I keep Stephen's photographs, because forgiveness is a long road, and we are still just taking the first steps. 2 years have passed since that day in Mr. Medina's office. 2 years since I got my life back. Today, as I write this, sitting on the porch of my big house, watching the afternoon sun paint the flowering bushes orange, I can say something that a long time ago I thought I would never feel again. I am at peace. The house is still mine, every corner, every memory, every photograph on the walls, but I no longer live alone in it. I rented the room upstairs to a medical student named Sophie. She is 23 years old, comes from out of state, and she reminds me of myself when I was young, full of dreams and hunger for the future. She helps me with the heavy groceries. I cook her homemade meals. It is a fair exchange without emotional debts, without manipulations. Helen comes to visit me twice a week. We drink cinnamon coffee on the patio. We talk about everything and nothing. We remember Stephen with laughter instead of tears. We reconciled for real. That porcelain tea set we fought over years ago is now at her house. I gave it to her. It is just porcelain. I told her the day I gave it to her. Family is more valuable. Ruth also returned to my life. It turns out that Valerie had told her that I didn't want to see her anymore, that I had accused her of stealing my things. When Ruth found out the truth, she came crying to ask for my forgiveness. You have nothing to forgive, I told her, hugging her. We were both victims of the same liar. Now we play cards every Thursday afternoon, just like before. The Stephen Campbell Foundation has helped 37 seniors in these 2 years. 37 people who were being robbed, manipulated, mistreated by their own families. Some recovered their properties. Others found safe shelter. Everyone recovered their dignity. Gwen, the nurse who saved me, works now as the coordinator of the foundation. It is her voice that answers the phone when someone asks for help. It is her experience that detects the signs of abuse. You gave me a purpose, she told me recently. For years I saw the abuse and couldn't do anything systematic. Now I can. Steve is still my lawyer. He has also become something like an adopted grandson. He comes to eat every 2 weeks. He likes my chicken pot pie. I talk to him about Damien, about my fears, about my hopes. He listens to me without judging. Do you know what I admire most about you, Mrs. Margaret? He told me once. That you could have stayed with the resentment, with the hate, but you chose to build something good out of all that pain. Damien, my son. It has been 2 difficult years for both of us. He kept his promise. He paid the loan in full month by month without missing a single time. He quit gambling. He attends his Gamblers Anonymous group religiously. He got a stable job at a small accounting firm far from temptations. We see each other once a month, on neutral ground, a coffee shop downtown. We converse with care like 2 strangers learning to know each other again. In our last meeting 2 weeks ago, he brought me something. "Mom, I found this cleaning out my things." It was an old photograph. He was 7 years old. He was in my arms, smiling with crooked teeth that hadn't been fixed yet. I was looking at him with a love so pure, it hurt to see it now. "I want to go back to being that boy you see in this photo," he said with a broken voice. "I don't know if it is possible, but I want to try." I took his hand across the table. "You cannot go back to being that boy, Damien. But you can be a man that boy would be proud to know. He does not live with me yet. Maybe he will never live with me again. But the door is not locked. It is ajar, waiting for him to prove he can cross it without bringing hidden poison." And Valerie. She is serving her sentence in the State Women's Correctional Facility. She tried to appeal twice. She lost both times. Her Ohio case added 5 more years to her sentence. I have not gone to visit her. I will not do it. Some people do not deserve your forgiveness. They deserve your indifference. The other day, a young journalist came to interview me for an article on elder abuse. She asked me how I felt about having won. "I didn't win," I told her. "I survived." What is different? What is the difference? Winning implies that everything goes back to how it was before. I didn't go back to being who I was. I became someone new, someone stronger but also sadder. Because now I know what the people you love are capable of when money is involved. "Do you regret having fought?" I looked her directly in the eyes. Never. Because if I hadn't fought today, I would be in a cheap nursing home medicated into oblivion, watching everything Stephen and I built disappear. And the worst part, believing that I deserved it, that I was a burden, that I was worth nothing. What would you say to other older people who are going through something similar? I thought for a long moment before answering. That it is never too late to defend yourself. That age does not make you weak, it makes you wiser. That if someone makes you feel like you are a hindrance, a problem, a burden, that person is lying to control you. And that always there is someone willing to help you if you dare to ask for help. Now, while the sun sets and Sophie arrives from college with her backpack full of books, while I prepare the dinner we will share, while I hear in the distance the sound of the church bells, I realize something. I didn't recover my life. I built a new one. And this life I have now, with its scars and its lessons, with its pain, transformed into purpose, with its solitude chosen instead of imposed. This life is completely mine. Stephen always told me, "Margaret, you have a soul of oak. You can bend, but you don't break." It took me 70 years to understand he was right. I bent, I almost broke, but here I remain standing with roots deeper than before. Epilogue and final reflection. This morning, I woke up to the song of the birds nesting in the bushes. I made myself my cinnamon coffee just as my grandmother taught me back in Virginia when I was a girl. I sat on the same porch where Stephen and I used to watch the sunrises 30 years ago, and I thought about everything that happened. There are days when it still hurts. Days when I see a mother with her son at the market and I feel a pang in my chest. Days when I find an old photograph of Damien and I ask myself at what exact moment something broke between us. But I no longer ask myself if it was my fault. Why wasn't it? For months after everything ended, I tortured myself thinking, what did I do wrong? Did I spoil him? Was I too soft? Too hard? Did I give him too much? Did I give him too little? Helen was the one who pulled me out of that maze. Margaret, she told me one afternoon holding my hands, you didn't create Valerie's greed. You didn't force Damien to gamble. You didn't put a knife in their backs so they would betray you. They made their own decisions, terrible decisions. And the consequences are theirs, not yours. She was right. I have learned that a mother's love is not infinite if it turns into complicity. That protecting your children does not mean saving them from the consequences of their actions. That sometimes the greatest show of love is saying, up to here, no more. Last week, Damien celebrated 2 years clean from gambling. He called to tell me. His voice sounded different, lighter, more real. Mom, I want you to know something, he said. These 2 years have been the hardest of my life, but also the most honest. For the first time in years, I look in the mirror and I don't feel disgust. I am glad, son. Do you think that someday we can go back to being a family like before? I took my time to answer because the question was a trap, and I don't fall into traps anymore. We cannot go back to being like before, Damien, because before included lies, secrets, and you allowing someone to destroy me. But we can build something new, something based on the truth, even if it hurts. Does that mean there is hope? It means there is possibility. Hope is built by you day by day with your actions. We hung up, and I stayed thinking about that conversation for hours. Have I forgiven him? I still don't know if forgiveness is the correct word. What I do know is that I no longer carry his betrayal like a stone in my chest. I let it go. I left it on the floor, and if he wants to pick it up and do something good with it, that is his job, not mine. Yesterday, a 74-year-old lady came to the foundation. Her name is Hope. What an appropriate name. Her daughter and son-in-law had kicked her out of her house, sold her furniture, emptied her bank account. They left her living in a windowless attic room, charging her rent from her own pension. Gwen received her. Steve reviewed her case. I sat with her while she drank tea. How did you do it, Mrs. Margaret? She asked me with eyes full of tears. How did you find the strength to fight? I didn't find it, I told her. I built it stone by stone, day by day. And there were days when I thought I couldn't, but someone reminded me of something important. I was not the problem. They were. And if I lose in the end, and if I don't recover anything, I took her wrinkled hands in mine. Hope listened to me well. Even if you don't recover a single dollar, even if you never go back to your house, even if your family never asks for forgiveness, you already won something. You recovered your voice, your dignity, the certainty that you are not a burden, that you deserve respect. No one can take that away from you, she cried. I did too, because in her eyes I saw mine from 2 years ago, and I realized something. My story is no longer just mine. It belongs to all the Hopes, the Gwens, the Helens, to everyone who was ever treated as disposable for having gray hair. Tonight before sleeping, I went to the room where I keep Stephen's things. I took out his favorite sweater, the gray wool one that smelled of his cologne. It doesn't smell like him anymore, it smells like time. But I hugged it anyway. I made it, old man, I whispered to him. They almost broke me, but they didn't succeed. I protected what we built, and I built something new on top, something that would have made you proud. There was no answer, because the dead do not answer. But in the silence of that room, I felt something akin to peace. I tell you this story because I need you to know something important. If you are going through something similar, if someone makes you feel invisible, useless, crazy, you are not. You are being manipulated, and there is a way out. There is always a way out. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if your family tells you that you are exaggerating. It doesn't matter if you are afraid. Ask for help. Speak up. Scream if necessary, because you are not a burden. You are a complete story, a life lived, a dignity intact. And no one, absolutely, no one has the right to snatch it away from you. I am 70 years old now. wrinkles that tell stories, hands that built, lost, and rebuilt. And if I learned anything, it is this: true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take away from you. And they didn't take away the most important thing from me. They didn't take my name, my story, my right to exist with dignity. That is still mine, and it will continue to be mine until my last breath. If this story touched something in your heart, if it made you think, if you know someone who needs to hear it, share it. Like this video. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching us from? Which part of this story impacted you the most? Because these stories are not just for entertainment. They are to remind us that it is never too late to defend ourselves. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening to Margaret's story, which is actually the story of many, including perhaps yours. The end.